happy to be joined by Dominic Guay, senior producer on Watch Dogs. This was the game that we all kind of knew was going to be for the next generation, but now you can officially say it is something that's going to be on the, at least on the PS4.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be on the PS4, but it's still on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 and PC too.
Oh, really? If you don't mind my asking, how does that work? Is it just, you have two different teams doing two different versions of the games?
Yeah, so we have a pretty big team, to be honest, but it's one team and there's people dedicated to every platform. So we're dedicating specialists on every platform. But at the core, the creative people are the same. So we have the same core vision for every platform about, immersion, interactivity, and connectivity as being very important to us.
If you don't mind my asking, what would be, outside of the visual, which obviously you're going to get better visuals on the PS4, what else that might not be as apparent will be happening for that system versus the current gen ones?
I don't want to bring it down to one specific example because it makes it like a one-trick pony, and it's not, right? It's everything. So I think one of the core aspect is interactivity. It's everything reacting the way you expect it to react in a city. So we've been pushing that for 4 years. So that's way before there was any talk of next generation hardware. So we've been always trying to make the city react to the player's action in a very credible way. But what we're finding is with this kind of platform, we can push it further. We can have more intelligence in every people in the street. For example, in the demo you saw when we hacked that train, well, there's like 40 people in that train, and they all react to it. They all, in physics, they react to the emergency stop. Then some will use their phone to call the cops, what's going on. So, that's a lot of work for a platform, and it's something we'll do on every platform, but definitely able to push it further on this one.
You bring up the point that I think that for the skeptics out there, it's so cool to see these little chunks of the game, but it is implying that you really have the AI of all these people in the city that really is happening independent of one another. And it's there. I mean, where does the scripting stop? And it really is computer-controlled AI making decisions based upon the circumstances.
Yeah, and that's kind of the statement we wanted to make with this demo, because we heard that from our first demo. And the first demo we showed was a mission. It was one of our game's mission. This was not a mission. It was simply a player within the open world getting distracted by something and making decisions, just exercising his freedom to do whatever he wants in the open world. So that was kind of the statement we wanted to make. That this is not a mission. It cannot be scripted. It's just a system reacting to the player. So the player saw an opportunity to intervene, in an act of a crime, if you want, within the city. So some people will say, is that vigilantism? Well, I mean, that's the player's decision. I wouldn't even call it that. If the player thinks that way, then it is. So he interferes, and then, police comes, there's a foot chase, chaos ensues, but that's all from the player's decision to act. And because he can hack into any computer, well, he can do a lot of things within the city.
So if the player didn't intervene, he just stood by and watched, how could that or would that have played out?
She could have died. Something really bad could have happened. And the player, it's the player's choice. Does he want to intervene? And we want to create a lot of those moments. They just, kind of happen within the city. And because you have access to all the information on everyone, well then, initially you do things because you're selfish up on your own knees for Aiden Pierce. But eventually it's like, okay, I'm seeing all those things happening. I have all this information. What do I do with it? Do I intervene? Do I let it happen? That's what we want. That's what we want it to be, the player's choice.
Now, I'm curious, and forgive me for drilling down, but I'm so excited about the concept of this game. I just want to hear it. So if you didn't go in that direction, would that crime still be happening in the city, or would it wait until you got near it again? Yeah,
so it would. If you'd had ignored her and walked on, she would have gone to that same place, and something could have happened. And actually, Aiden Pierce, as he grows his ability to control computers in the city, and he has more and more capability in that aspect, he's going to be able to hack into Chicago's surveillance system. So we're inspiring it on the real Chicago surveillance system. There's over 15,000 cameras pointing at people within Chicago, doing facial recognition, trying to do crime prediction. So when he hacks into the systems, he can know, okay, somewhere in the city something's going to happen. If he wants to, he can go there and investigate or ignore it. And even if he goes there, it's not just going to be a point. It's not going to be obvious. He's going to have to figure it out by himself. What's going on? What could I be doing here?
It's interesting that you guys have chosen Chicago. It is one of the few major American cities that's seeing a rising crime rate. I mean, is that just kind of happenstance that you picked a city that is probably in a dark way more appropriate for the circumstances of this game than even a Los Angeles or New York.
There's a lot of history to Chicago. Obviously, I mean, going back to Capone, there's been a lot of crisis in that city. So we thought it was a good, interesting pick. But beyond that, it's been described as the most surveilled city in the United States. They've set up a very powerful network. They can actually read from a piece of paper through some of their surveillance cameras in Chicago. And that's all for, it's all for the good. I mean, we're not judging on this, but the question we're asking is, if you had that kind of power, what would you be doing with it?
Okay, so each individual person in this city, there's some facts, there's some data. From a programming and writing standpoint, that sounds almost insane. I mean, how many people do you have that are just identifying a character in the city and just creating that kind of backstory in some modes of interactivity with them?
We need to add thousands of characters. We have a pretty large writing team. We're providing a lot of coffee. No, it's a daunting task. So, I mean, we don't need to create millions. There's a limit to the amount we need to create, but we need to create thousands of unique characters. We need to have their backstory. And we need to, I mean, you saw how Aiden systems can kind of extract the most important aspect, the most useful information from their lives. And the player then can decide what he wants to do. For example, when he hacks this guy for his bank account information, well, you can see his income. The guy's got he makes a lot of money. If I'm going to hack someone's bank account information, I might pick that one,
I mean, I think the other thing is I'm tired of the term anti-hero, but what was very striking at the E3 demo, and it was very evident here, is he is morally dubious, and it sounds like the player has some ability to kind of shape what his morals are, but I can't think of another character that I've seen where I feel a little bit torn about even the character, even though I'm playing him, whether or not I'm going to like him.
Well, I think you'll grow on people. He has his own personal drama, and his main goal is to protect people close to him. So I think that's something we can relate to, right?
Yeah.
What happens is, he can he can take extreme measures. So he can be a violent man. He can use guns. He can drive any vehicle. So he can do pretty rough things. But ultimately, his aims are relatively positive. But the player will decide what kind of anti-hero he wants to play, right? If he wants to play a guy that always goes for more moderate means and doesn't kill, and he can do that to a certain extent. But if you want to just go crazy and always use violence to solve his problems, he can do that too. And in the demo we showed today, we showed our reputation system for the first time. Because he prevented a crime from happening, the player had a reputation bonus. So basically, over the long haul, the player is going to have a reflection of the way he's been acting within the city, from the citizens themselves, his reputation, but also from the medias within the city.
My final question, I have a feeling some other people have asked you as well. Seeing this whole presentation of the PlayStation 4, it has a great deal of connectivity. That you're always sort of connected with your friends. And along comes your game that kind of casts that very concept in a odd way. I mean, were you aware of that, I don't want to say contradiction, but that curious relationship coming into this event?
Yeah, well, I think I can understand the references you're making, but I mean, Ubisoft is fundamentally, we make technology and games, but we make technology to support our games. So we're not saying technology is bad or connectivity is bad, all the opposite. Basically, we're saying, although, connectivity is great, and, I'm using it all the time. I'm dependent on my smartphone, I'm sure you are too. It opens up some vulnerabilities. So, and that's kind of what we're looking at, right? Anything that's good always has this little flip side, and that's what we're looking at.
Well, I'm looking for the good and more good to come from seeing this game in the future. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
All right.